Hello, participants. Our talk today is the interview with Midula Dey, who's a business consultant, author, and thought leader on navigating imposter syndrome and self-doubt. Midula will tell us why acknowledgement of imposter syndrome and self-doubt goes hand in hand with problem-solving strategy, tactics for skill transformation, and impact. Yulia Timoshenko, who's a senior BA manager from EPAM, will be the interviewer. Ladies, please.
Hello, everybody. Victoria, thank you for introduction. Midula, I am very happy for this opportunity today to be in the role of your interviewer. Thank you for accepting our proposal, basically, to take part in the Excellence Conference. And let me share with the audience that we met with you already almost 2 years ago, but totally in other roles. And a lot of happened since then. You wrote a book, but first things first. Midula, please tell about yourself and your journey.
Oh, Yulia, firstly, thank you so much for inviting me to this great conference. I'm really excited to be here and sharing thoughts around imposter syndrome and for your audience to get some key takeaways around it. Who would have thought when you and the rest of the EPAM team came to Kantar to help us on marketplace technology that fast forward a year, I would be here giving this conference. So thank you for the kind introduction. So in terms of my journey, I'm going to explain it in a slightly different way. So I'm going to go back to my parents. My parents came to the UK in the 1970s and they were immigrants. So my background is an immigrant background, low income. And my actual first language isn't English. It's actually Bengali. So I learned English when I was between 5 and 6 when I went to school, and neither of my parents spoke English. So how does someone like me then dare to go to a top university where I studied law and then decided to go and do accountancy when I was really, really, really bad at managing my own money, and then decided, hey, I want to have a career in banking. Let me go and enter this banking game. So where I started off working in a Japanese bank, I did trader P&Ls. So I calculated the trade P&Ls for traders and derivatives and also looking after new issues. I then worked at Deutsche Bank, where I was responsible for managing and overseeing the financial close-end for the investment banking, global banking, and global and transaction banking divisions. Then deciding, hey, I actually want to do something a bit different. I want to know more about budgets and costs. So then moving over into UBS asset management, and this is the case study we'll run through, where I took on a CFO role as looking after operations, technology, HR, and strategy, helping them manage their costs, and then deciding after that, hey, do you know what? I want another change. Let me go and work in UBS Group, and where I went around, spoke to divisional heads and department heads, and pitched ideas around how they could save money across the bank. And guess how much pitching experience I had at that point? I'm going to put you on the spot now.
No, please tell us about that one. I will try to guess.
Yeah, I had zero pitching experience, and there's me trying to persuade someone, hey, I have this really cool idea. Please like it and please approve the project. And then deciding I wanted to change my career completely. And so I ended up leaving banking and decided to become an artist, set up a fashion label, and then in tandem become a freelancer. So where I again worked in banking and really specialized in project management and program management, to the point that I took on a data project when I had zero experience in data. And when I met you, because I was so good at doing change, what had happened is someone had asked me, hey, when I was at HSBC, could you help set up a business management, a COO function? And I was, yeah, sure, why not? What is it? Let me find out and let me do it. Oh, and before I forget as well, along the way, I also had a really cool bucket list. So I climbed the highest mountain in Africa, Kilimanjaro. I also attempted to climb the second highest mountain in South America called Aconcagua, but got sick on the way. And I also wrote a book.
Oh my God. Such a great experience. Thank you for sharing that one. I believe our business analysts feeling this Kilimanjaro effect all the days and whenever they're joining the project. So today's discussion is about imposter syndrome. Why you believe it's important to discuss this topic and why it's important for BA transformation?
Okay, that's two great questions. Now, the reason why I explain my journey in that way is if you listen to that journey, externally you think, hey, Midula, you're very confident. You must have had this belief behind you. I bet you didn't suffer from imposter syndrome. It's so wrong. What I'll do is I'll answer what imposter syndrome is and explain why it's really important for the BA
Sure.
transformation, if that's okay. So now, imposter syndrome, all it really is the fact that you're expected to do this new role, this new function, but you don't have the skills yet. You don't have the experience yet. But guess what? Everyone around you is expecting you to be an expert. I'm sure you've had this, Julia, where especially you came into Kantar and everyone is like, yay, EPAM are here, hit the ground running, you're now the experts. So what
I had the same. And not only me, I believe all our people who are attending this conference, they had at least one the same.
Exactly. So when we actually define imposter syndrome and look at it as what it is, which is really us not having the skills yet, us not having the experience yet. So, hey, no wonder we have self-doubt. It's because we're expecting to perform in a function, in a role, where we're not there yet. And ideally, in a real nice world, what you'd like to see is you say, hey, I'm going to give you 6 to 8, 9 months, because it's been proven, it takes between 6 to 8, 9 months for you to be fully functional, to be an expert in your role. And then, I'll come to you as an expert. But we know,
No chances. No, we do not have such time.
And especially if we look at EPAM, you're going in and you're expected to be these consultants from the get-go. So you don't have that opportunity. And the reason why this is important is once you recognize what imposter syndrome really is, you can then control it and manage it. You can then get ahead of it. And rather than allowing it to control you, you can then say, hey, this is a situation I'm in. I'm a BA. I'm working in transformation. And guess what transformation is? It's change. So we know with change, everything is always moving. Nothing's ever going to be settled. And we as people, we're wired to hate change. We resist it. And yet, this community of amazing people here, be your BA, product manager, product owner, is working in that type of environment. So in summary, the reason why it's important is once you understand that you have imposter syndrome, you can then say, right, what do I need to actually tackle it? What are the strategies am I going to use so that I can manage that self-doubt? I can accelerate my skills learning. I can also accelerate my experience. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to give some practical advice in this interview.
Okay, so if imposter syndrome is a good thing or bad one?
100% good thing. And I'll tell you why. Right. Because I'm here to debunk this view that imposter syndrome is a bad thing. Because if we already know that we're expected to be an expert, so for example, the first project you ever ran, or you've moved into your new role as a portfolio manager, and you're sat going, oh my gosh, I'm expected to be an expert, but I know for this role, these are the skills I need to have to be able to perform at that level, at the expert level. I know I need to have these experience that I can draw on to perform at that level. So now, if I know that I have imposter syndrome, by acknowledging it, rather than going into a panic attack and going into overwhelm and being stressed out and saying, hey, I can't do this, this is impossible, and acting in a reactionary way.
But that is for sure the first reaction, this like panicking burst.
But it is usually what happens, from my experience, and when we go through the UBS story case study, you want the ground to open up. I find my face goes red. I feel sick. I feel this complete overwhelm where I just think, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then if this was a film, you'd have the expletives, the coming out of my mouth. That's the reality. But by being able to say, okay, I know what this is. I know that this is where I am currently. This is where I need to be. I can then map out a roadmap of what skills do I need, what experience do I need, and what's the gap analysis. And then that becomes your personal development plan, where you then review strategies and tactics of how you get there, if you're getting any closer. So that's why, if you acknowledge it, you can proactively manage it. And you still will have the overwhelm. You'll still have the occasions where you go, oh my God, what am I doing? What's happening? You'll still have Kilimanjaro or even Everest probably at times. But that's because we're only human and that's natural.
So that is what you're saying right now. That is totally natural to feel all these like red face things. But what you need to do, you need to understand what's happening with you and you need to know how to deal with it.
Absolutely. And then there's a number of strategies and takeaways that we'll run through. We're not going to get through everything because one of the things, just for the audience to, we're going to be fully transparent. Yulia and I were going through this and we said, oh my gosh, there's a lot of content here. How are we going to cover it all? We said, what we're going to do, we're going to do our best and then we'll cover as much as possible, see where we get to. But each and every takeaway you'll get from here, from this session, is something that you can apply immediately after 12 o'clock. But hopefully you have lunch first.
Okay, I do not want to wait anymore. I would like really to hear more about your inspiring experience and real life stories. So I will not ask you if, but when, because we discussed already everybody had that in your life. So when you had the situation that you felt uncomfortable and you didn't know what to start with and where to begin basically, and how did you become aware that you are dealing with imposter syndrome?
Great questions. I'm going to give you the best example I can think of. And this was when I was at UBS Asset Management. And let me paint the picture so you can all be in that same experience as myself. So my background had always been revenues, analytics, and more of a central role. But then I decided, hey, let me go and do a budgeting role at UBS. And I left a very, very safe job, a safe bank at the time, Deutsche Bank, to go to UBS. And the financial crisis had just hit. So when I went to
You were
UBS,
very brave doing that.
I didn't know that at the time. At the time, my boss had said to me, by the way, have you seen what's happening with your new employer? And I looked and my face fell. So imagine you're in the financial crisis, you've just joined this bank, you're in the cost area, looking after operations technology. There's a new CEO who's come in. There is so much pressure for you to all find savings and cost initiatives when you don't even have a cost savings background, when you don't have a budgeting background. And then the actual, and I'll give you some scale of this. So the actual budget I was looking after was 100 million Swiss francs, and it was between 500 to 700 headcount. And my normal job, yes, huge. So then my normal job was, my BAU job was looking after that. And my BAU job used to take from 8 in the morning to about 8, 9 in the evening. So I was there 6 months. And then guess what? My boss decides to give me a project. Woohoo! And I'm sure you've all been there. I'm sure you all recognize it. He decided to give me this project, and it was to roll out a global billing tool across UBS Asset Management. And that had about 100 million Swiss francs going through it as well. And this was a high-profile project that was sponsored by the group CTO of UBS. So not just in asset management. there are 3 key stakeholders. So we had the technology team, who are really interested in making sure that their customers, the consumers, they were charged the correct billing, charged the correct costs. You had the financial guys who were really interested about understanding the impact on each of the companies, because it was going to have an impact on the financial books and records. And then you have the businesses who are receiving the costs from the technology, from the usage, to make sure that they understood it and then the costs were fair. Then on top of that, we had a virtual team of 3, including myself. And don't forget, I was always already doing my BAU job between about 8, 9 in the morning till 7, 8 in the evening. And then I had, to make it more fun as well, I had to get 2 different sign-offs, one from the deputy CFO, from the finance perspective, and then one from the CTO. So that was just the background, so that you can...
I could only imagine that one, how you felt at that moment. That's crazy.
There's something
Any chances to reject this role? Listen, like
No.
new project?
No
chances.
But what I would do is, when we come to the key takeaways, I'll give you an insight of how I would have handled it. I think that's really useful. My initial thoughts were complete overwhelm, because I didn't know how to do it. I actually couldn't see. I was just completely thinking, I've got this, my main job to do, and my main job has so many things already. I'm already responsible for outsourcing and offshoring, which I knew nothing about. And then I have this project to do as well. And so it was either the choice of sink or swim. And this is why I learned the term sink or swim. So either you sink or you swim somehow. And I was determined that no matter what, even if I had one safety jacket, I would keep my head above water. So yeah, it was just a horrible...
And you survived, basically. That's why you are here sharing with us your amazing experience.
I'm here, survived, and I will give you a take on how to do it differently later. So yes.
So for such situations, you definitely need a plan. So what to start with, what to do in such situation? You have your job, BAU, then you have new project opportunity, also a lot of unknown parts. Where to go first?
I think the key thing, before you get to a plan, with problem solving, it's always about identifying the problems you face, the root cause, and not the symptoms. Because once you understand the root cause, you can then address them, and then you can come up with a clear strategy and tactic. And it becomes a lot more productive, and you end up... I like this philosophy of working smarter than harder. So I identified 7 problems that I was facing. We may not get through all 7 because we want to actually give some value here. So the first piece was my mindset of self-doubt. I was, oh my gosh, what's going on? And that was based on 2 tangible things. One is I didn't have the experience in project management. And I'm going to be a bit naughty. I'm just going to refer to my notes just to make sure that I capture this fully. So in terms of the mindset of self-doubt, I've been volunteered by my line manager to become this PM and expected to perform and drive the BA and SME work streams, as well as manage my finance BAU work job. I didn't have any project management qualifications. I'm sure many of you BAs and PMs or pod owners have been in a similar situation as well. Then I had limited experience in technology delivery. I'm here trying to develop PM, this very complex tool, which required me to run impact assessment across technology, finance, business needs, run proof of concept assessments and sign-offs, design like UAT testing and the framework, and do these things known as test scripts, which I had no idea what they were. And then also design and set up a post-implementation support, including training of the finance users. And the other piece around why this self-doubt arose was I had limited time availability. As I'd already mentioned, I was always responsible for a BAU role. I was looking at cost management. I was in the middle of a financial crisis. I was doing all these other projects. So I was working long hours. I didn't have time. So I think the key thing is before you plan, is always to understand what the problems. So I've just mentioned 3 problems, and we'll share like a couple of slides afterwards so your the team get the whole oversight. So in terms of those problems, it was, okay, how do I tackle them? How do I actually, come up with a plan? So the first thing you always do, especially when you're overwhelmed, is you need to actually look at strategies and tactics to build your inner credibility and confidence. You do this by looking at your prior experience and creating a framework to build technology delivery experience fast. And the strategy and tactics I used included these 2 things. Thinking time. So I created dedicated time to understand the current situation regarding the project requirements, the project plan, risks and issues, and identified my own gaps. And I did this out of hours when no one else was in on the floor, so I could actually create some space and time for my other job. And that's really important. If you don't create that dedicated thinking time, what happens? We react and we're not able to then think things through rationally. And then the second thing that I did to address this mindset of self-doubt, limited experience in technology delivery, and limited time availability is I identified and built a key network of SMEs. And by that, what I mean is I identified the key SMEs and connectors in technology and finance. So for example, the developer I was working with, the business manager, the finance SME, to do one of 3 things. The first thing is I wanted to leverage their knowledge to cover my own learning gaps and build the on-the-job technology delivery experience because I didn't have it. Secondly, I wanted to capture the full project workflow and minimize risks, ensure the risks and issues and work blocks were identified and the project plan was complete. And thirdly, I wanted to create an effective working team to deliver the plan. And I did this by using a Q&A framework, which I use consistently, which is asking them, what's missing? How do we do it? What's an issue? Tell me the priority. And then guiding them to give me a structure, give me answers that we can then leverage and use. So those are the key things I did around that. And I did some other pieces as well, but I think I can sense that you want to ask me a question.
Yeah, I have already a couple of questions basically. That sounds easy. Like I need to think first that I need to gather SMEs, but how to make all those people to work with you? How to select like proper people, where to find them?
So the key thing always is, and this is why having qualifications on projects is really important. The first thing that you do is you need to work with whoever's assigned you the project, speak with them, because usually with a project, before you start with a project, you already have your governance structure in place. You already have the key people, the sponsors, the SMEs already identified. If not, you then ask people around the network to say, hey, who's this person who can do this? We need these things from this project. This is what we're looking for. This is why. And this is the amount of capacity and hours we need. Who do you suggest we work with? You then go away and have conversations with people to make sure, 1, they're the right person, or 2, you may find that that person is your main contact and that they then act as a coordinator for the information that you need. And then thirdly, what you do is you need to be so clear on what the project requirements are and the scope so that whoever you're bringing on board is the right person. So that when you're having conversations, and this is what I did, I had conversations with my boss, I had conversations with the CTO, the business manager for technology, his number 2. I had conversations with the finance folks to say, this is what we need. This is why we need it. Who's the person who can give me that? And by doing it in that structured way, what that enables you to do, it enables you to identify people very quickly, have those conversations very quickly, and then set up that structure. Or you may find, which tends to happen, is you don't have someone. You don't have an SME. You don't have someone who can fill that gap. In which case,
sorry for interrupting you, but even like early, you told you need to have a conversations done very quickly with CTO, with CEO, and so on. But how to engage leadership team as well? Because you have limited time, limited budget, you need to run already the project, and they are normally very busy.
Okay, this is where having project management qualifications is really helpful, and this is what you need to do. The 101 for project management is one, you already have your project scope criteria defined up front. You have the governance defined up front. You have the terms of engagement up front. So that when, and by that I mean everyone, the sponsors, the CTO, the senior leaders know exactly what is expected of them. You set up a governance structure, which is what I did, to deal with the senior leaders' competing priorities, where on that governance structure, you review, you discuss project progress, your priorities, issues and challenges, resourcing needs. So by doing that in that formal way, what that allows you to do, it allows everyone included in the project, be it BA, be it project manager, the CTO, the senior guy team, to understand this is my role, this is what's expected of me. If that doesn't happen, this is the knock-on impact. And when I set up projects, when I set up governance, what I really do is, and what I've learned is really powerful, is you need to show people the cause and effect. The cause and effect of the delay of the decision, the cause and the effect of if this thing doesn't happen, this is why you should care. And the thing I always I'm getting really excited now, forgive me. So the thing I always ask myself, if I'm speaking with someone, especially if it's someone senior, someone I want to leverage their relationships to help me unblock things, is this is why you should care. And if I can't articulate that clearly, then that's on me. And the way you do that, you explain things. This is the problem statement. This is the impact it will have. This is why you should care. And I learned that approach from an old boss of mine who worked at McKinsey. And he was saying, Midula, when it comes to problem solving and communication, one of the things that we need to do, especially with projects, is to be really clear as to what is expected of everyone. So then it doesn't become into a blame game culture. It just becomes more of, this was done, this was the impact, this is what we now need to address, this is a potential solution, what's going to happen, keep quiet, senior leaders, please give me the answer because I'm only the PM and it's up to you.
That's really great.
It sounds really easy, but I think one of the things I've learned is if you have that structure and clear framework, it then enables you to move from those things very quickly and easily. It also enables you to then have really good conversations with everyone you're working with, especially if you're limited in time. I know that most BAs are triple hatting. Most PMs are triple hatting because you don't have the resources in place. So it means that it's really even more vital to ensure that whatever conversation you're having, it's clear. You understand what you're doing, why you're having that conversation, what you want from that person. You explain it in a way where they understand the impact. If they don't care, then okay, this is a risk. Bring it up to the governance meeting and let them decide if that risk is worth remediating or ignoring.
Yeah, BAs and PMs are doing expectations management a lot, I believe.
Yeah.
For sure.
And it's more
talking about this example that you shared with us, you named also other problems like limited time, limited budget. How do you deal with that one?
So in terms of limited time availability, what I also did was there's a couple of other strategies I took, which was I actually proactive, because my background is planning and organization. So I'm always looking ahead. And for me, because I already had the skill, I drew on my existing experience from Deutsche Bank, from working in with traders, to look ahead and say, hey, what issues can I see down the track? And those issues, can I group them? Can I categorize them? If I resolve this one problem, would that then eliminate these issues? And the only way you're going to ever learn how to do that is to start thinking and practicing strategy, being strategic versus tactics. And there's this really great philosophy I use, and it's Pareto's law, which is the 80-20 rule.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea around this, and it works, is 80% of your return, what you want, only requires 20% of effort. So you now need to identify, out of the problems that you're facing, which ones are the critical ones, which ones are the strategic ones, because guess what? You can't do it all. Because not every single thing is a priority, even though when you do projects, you get your priority list and you have 100 priorities. That's not the case.
That
So
will work for sure.
So when you have that limited time, what you do is you base unlimited resources. What you do is do one of two things. Is you can do, and this is what I've done before, you do a roadmap of everything that's expected of you based on your resources. And what's real, and all that.
Sorry for interrupting you, but when you're saying expected from you, means from the project or from you personally playing the role?
Where I'm talking more about from the project, or if you're in a BA or project manager, you've got 100 requests coming through.
Mm-hmm.
So what you do is you pull that all together and you say, these are my requests. But you don't put 100 requests on there. What you'll find, and this is one of the things that after this call you can do now, is you're able to group those requests into categories to say, this is to do with regulation, this is to do with on demand, So there's various things that you can group together. You put that down on a simple PowerPoint. Doesn't have to be fancy, to say that's my demand, in effect, everything that's coming into me. Now, this is my capacity based on my team, working normal hours, not working from 8 to 12 at night. Say, this is my capacity. And guess what? Based on this, based on these milestones, based on this capacity, Houston, we either have a problem or we don't.
And what to do in case we have a problem?
So the reason,
because normally it is like that.
Yeah, the reason you do this is you present it back to the decision maker. So you basically say, the reason I need to have a call with you is we need to prioritize. So you let me know which ones do we need to do, which ones are the priorities. So you don't make the call because it's not your job, it's not your responsibility. Because don't forget, you're either the BA or you're either the project manager. You have a scope already defined. So if anything goes against that and you find, hey, I've got a problem, then it's the decision makers, the sponsors, who get the opportunity to make that call. But what you can do is help them by, when you do that demand view, it's really useful because a lot of the times they don't know that you have all of these other requests coming in. A lot of the times, and this is what happened in Deutsche Bank when I was working as a product owner there. I know it's a slightly different case study, where I was working for the chief in the chief data office, and we were implementing a data tool, both on software releases as well as the infrastructure platform side. And he'd contacted one of the developers and said, hey, I'd like you to do this analysis. Yeah, go and do it. I'm really interested in this. And then my developer turned around and said, Midula, I've got all of this other stuff to do. How am I going to do it? And he's asked me to do these things. Then this other person has asked me to do all of this other stuff on the infrastructure side. We're not going to do it. So this is why by putting it into that one pager, we're able to have a really nice conversation with, oh my gosh, James, and explain to him, hey, James, this is everything that you've asked the team to do. Out of everything you've asked us to do, this is the strategic stuff, this is the business stuff, and this is other things that we're not sure. This is how much we have available. And, you can see the timelines. So can you please let me know what we can do? And immediately the conversation shifted, which is, wow, I didn't realize that the requests I'd raised would lead to this. Thank you for putting it together. Now I understand. I have the big picture. I don't need you to do this stuff. Please don't. That was me because I was curious. Also, the other stuff that we're doing on infrastructure, let's break it down. We don't need to do all of it in one go. So the one thing that I've learned, which is really powerful, is when it comes to communication, whether you're a BA, a PM, is if you're able to convey that information in a simple way where people can see the cause and the effect. If you can actually summarize things where you go, hey, these are the big pockets of work you've asked us to do. And the issue is we don't have the time. So can you let me know one of two things? If you want us to do this work, tell me how we can do it in a smart way, because we're already at the highest levels in terms of productivity. Are there good role models elsewhere in the organization that I can follow? Or if we're not able to do it, which one should we focus on? And then thirdly, we can do some of this, but we can't do everything that you wanted. So there will be a delay. And then what that allows you to do is to have a really grown-up, informed conversation with the decision maker. And there will be times, because that's happened to me, where, and this is at UBS, where the person will just look at you and go, okay, I'll leave it with you and walk away.
But normally people, they do not like bringing those like bad news. We'll have a delay, that is not possible to do everything. Let's think about priorities and so on. They're afraid of to say this like no answer.
But it's not bad news. All you're presenting to them are facts. All you're presenting them is a current situation. So it's not bad news. It's more, are you actually sharing with them the real issue, the complete picture? Because when you then share with someone the complete picture to say, hey, this is where our situation is. I'm coming to you because we're stuck. How do we get out of this problem? How do we get out of this issue? It's not bad news. It's basically, we have a situation. What do we do? How do we overcome that? What sort of things delay?
Have you ever got the answer that no, we still need to do everything? Please figure out how to do that.
When I was so this was at UBS. I didn't know any better. So at UBS, when I was at, the overwhelm, because I didn't have my project management qualification, so I had no Prince 2, had no Agile, I had nothing. That's where I wasn't able to respond to that in a good way. And I thought it was up to me to drive it. And I'm fairly sure that a lot of BAs and project managers and product owners have felt that, where they feel as if it's up to me, my responsibility to drive this. It's up to me that this doesn't fail. Well, I'm here to say to you, no, it isn't. I'm here to say to you, the most important thing that you need to have are qualifications around project management if you're doing a project. And I'll explain why. It goes back to the roles and responsibilities. It's because it's not your role. There's clear roles that have been defined around sponsors, what they need to do, around you as a PM, around you as a business analyst. So why should you be responsible for the role and responsibility for someone else if they're not doing it? Is that right? Does that mean you failed? Or is it more that the conversations haven't happened at the start? Is it more that when you have these governance meetings and people say it has to happen, fine, but in order for this to happen, I need you to do these things by this day. If that doesn't happen, then the knock-on impact is this. And then if you come
very
back,
tough conversations, especially when you're working for a service company and you have a client and you're saying, no, that will not happen.
You're not saying no. You're saying, in order for this to happen, I need these things to be in place. And that's a different conversation. That's the difference. You're not saying no. You're saying, in order for me to actually deliver this, in the same way when we write contracts to say, hey, I'm going to do this for you, in return for this, these things need to happen. And what I've seen is failed is, where it doesn't work so well, is when people don't explain that. They don't give you the transparency. You suddenly are quiet, then all of a sudden someone says, yeah, I've got a problem. And then you're thinking, well, hang on a moment. Why didn't you tell me a month ago? I could have done something about it. So when I was running this project at UBS Asset Management, because I have a planning and organization background, and I'm always looking ahead, I was always looking ahead and working backwards and saying, okay, in terms of this project scope, I know I have two people. I have two sets of success criteria, and they're both different. One is the CTO, who is interested in making sure this tool goes live because then his boss is happy, but also then they can charge out his costs to anyone who uses it. Cool. Then the other is the deputy CFO, Manoj, who was my success criteria is, I need to make sure that whatever happens from a financial perspective, we have the right levels of capital in place. If we don't, we're not signing it off. So they're not competing priorities, even though they appear to be. It's more, in order for this project to be completely successful and to minimize risk, to make sure it does what it said it would do, we need to make sure both happen. And in that situation, what happened was there's quite a lot of conflict. And guess who was in the middle?
You for sure. And you both basically did know something when assigned you on that project. You had required skills for that because you're naming like planning, you did that, and this, you were already prepared.
No, it's because of my previous background and the way I work. I always look ahead. I always look to proactively manage things. And what I found is really useful is if you have a good perspective of how an organization works in terms of overall the commercials. If you understand how everything falls in together, which is, I've been very fortunate in my career. I know how the revenue side works. I know how the risk, treasury, the reg side works. I know how the back office works. I know how technology works. I know how costs work and legal work. And because I have that big picture view, and even when I didn't, I drew in with other people, and it was always about, I want to understand the overall picture. Because when I do, then that means I can then plan ahead. I can make sure we get the right people on board. I know that we can manage risks. And when you have that complete view, again, when you go and present issues and challenges to sponsors, they can have a good conversation, go, okay, I understand it now. I see. And then it's up to them to direct you. And when they say, I want you to come up with a solution, guess what? You can. But the solution doesn't necessarily mean it's the strategic long-term solution that you would like to do, like the nice to have. You may have to do a sticking plaster, which is you may have to come up with a tactical shortcut just to get it through, with the knowledge that further down the line, you will do more work on the project to make sure, if it's a technology project, that it's sustainable. You've got the security structure in place, you've got the resilience in place. So part of this is learning the difference of learning strategy tactics, learning how to use both to be adaptable, to give your business, your clients what they need, but also learning how to communicate with confidence. And by that, using a simple structure, which is, this is why, this is the problem, this is why you care, this is what I need from you, this is the timeline, there you go.
Yeah,
And then,
that's a really good one. Not only to think about strategy and to be perfectionist, but also to think about tactic. And in real life, basically those tactics and those solutions that we did immediately, let's say, then sometimes it lives like for years.
Exactly. Because that just shows you what the priorities really are. Because when people say tactics, part of it comes back to what's a priority, what's good enough, what's your minimal viable product. And it comes back to where does your client actually want to invest their money? And if you're able to do that, great. And that is why you have to be adaptable. Just because someone wants the perfect solution today, it may not be feasible. And this is why having a conversation where you show and communicate, these are the challenges this is my pipeline of what we have to do. This is our capacity as a team based on our skills. Oh, I think you've frozen, Julia. Hey, yeah.
Yeah, I disappeared. Yeah, sorry. Something happened with my internet connection.
It's okay.
I would like to ask you the following question. Returning back to this UBS example, you shared already a lot of things, what happened, what you did, how it ended up. Was it successful or not? How it went?
So I have a life jacket. What do you think? You know me, and what do you think happened?
I believe that you succeeded. No doubt.
Yes, but at a cost. So the success was everything was delivered globally. We had a global release across all the locations, all the functionality was delivered, as well as a post-implementation support. So we ran a post-system support system with the finance colleagues for about 6 months. So everything was fine, everyone was happy. But it came at a cost. And that cost was, I had a really bad burnout. As I mentioned, I was working really long hours anyway. And the person I was dating at the time, my boyfriend at the time, we were laughing. He worked in mergers and acquisitions. And we used to catch up in the evening at 7 o'clock for a date night for dinner. And guess what? I'd then go back to work. And I'd be there at work till maybe 12, 1 in the morning. If I wasn't working on the weekends, I was sleeping. So I burnt out.
Oh my God, crazy.
So
crazy schedule. And you were lucky that your boyfriend had similar schedule and your relations basically survived.
Yeah, I understand the hours that an M&A banker does, let's just say. But that wasn't healthy. And one of the things I realized, and this is one of the lessons learned, is sometimes things need to fail. And I'll explain why. So the key thing that we need is the qualifications for our role. And what I mean is not doing the LinkedIn qualification. I mean the real qualification where you're in a classroom, whether it's virtually, you're being taught by the best in class. So for example, when I did Agile, the Agile trainer, he was worked at Ford, incredible guy. I was in a room with people from different industries. And what was really great was I learned the best in class, best working practices. We were all sharing different ideas of this is how you apply Agile, this is when it doesn't work, these are the things you need to be mindful of. Why that's important is when it comes back to recognizing that we're all under pressure when it comes to time. We want to be effective. We're doing multiple things. If that's the case, you need to improve your productivity. You do things smarter rather than working harder. How do you do that? You learn you learn from the best. You build up really good working practices, so you know the shortcuts. That's the first thing. And the other reason why that PM qualification is really important is I would have realized that, hey, I'm not responsible for this project. I've done more than enough. It got to the point where the tax person had resigned, moved to another job, and guess who was looking at the tax consequence for implications for each of the companies for withholding tax? Me. I didn't know anything about withholding tax, and I had a 2-day handover with him. Just because I'm an accountant, I figured it out.
But it's so hard to let your project to fail.
But it's not about you. It's about all of you, because one of the things I've learned is everyone has their role and responsibility. When we have our role and responsibility, including our sponsors, we set up the governance correctly, we have our terms of reference, you've done your role. But if you've not been set up for success, but other people aren't doing theirs, why is it failure on you? It isn't. And it's like this mindset thing where people are trying to trick you to say, hey, it's you. It isn't. You can still be successful and have a win when you've actually delivered what you need to do. And when we hide that failure, this is what happens. You basically hide a resourcing issue. So the project or the work that you're doing hasn't been resourced correctly. Secondly, you also hide potentially people's personal development, so that some people may not be up to the skills, may not be up to the job yet. So you're hiding that from them. And it also means that the senior leadership team, they're not able to then make the right choices. So that failure isn't yours. So now, earlier you asked me the question to say, hey, what if it's not possible to say no? You had no chance to say no. This time, I would have said no in a different way. I would have said, yes, right, this is the work. I mentioned about that roadmap. Work you've asked me to do around all of this stuff around cost management. Hey, and I know that we're in the financial crisis, so I get that this bit is really important. You've asked me to do offshoring. You've asked me to do outsourcing. Great. You're asking me to do this project. Now, can you ask me what I can drop and what I can't? Because I'm already working from 8, 9 in the morning to 7. And I'm being quiet.
I have a very great question connected basically with this one, with like failing and all this topic on the platform from our audience. Do you feel the challenges of imposter syndrome are different for contractors, consultants, and employees?
Great question, because the difference is in this. And I've been a permanent member of staff, and I've been a contractor freelancer. When you're a permanent member of staff, you have a longer grace period. People already say, hey, you're new to the role. I'm expecting you'll be up and running in between 6 to 9 months. So it's fine. So then you have a longer period of time to overcome your imposter syndrome, to build those skills, to build those experience. And the pressure for you to do that is not there. Now, when you're a freelancer, contractor, or an EPAM colleague,
service company, let's say, not only EPAM, I believe, for all service companies.
Service company. So when you came to Kantar last few years ago, and Jeremy said, hey, this is what I need for you to do, you all had to hit the ground running. And you're having to figure out what this new technologies was and micro end. When that period, that grace time disappears, it's not there. So yes, you're right. As a contractor, as a freelancer, as a service company, you do not have that grace period. So you have to start making sure that whatever you do, you basically start accelerating, leveraging, and being smart with your time. And it's normal. I think I really want to impress this point is it's really normal for you to then think, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough. What's wrong with me? There isn't. It's because you haven't had the time yet for the skills and for the experience yet? So I think that's a great question, because I've been in both and I've noticed the difference.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you very much. I have also a very interesting question about your experience overall. I believe person is very inspired by that one, how you are switching roles and like pushing yourself to the challenges. So the question is, what if you have a very much limited time for dealing with all the gaps, but can't miss the chances of taking over some new challenges?
You have, oh my God, that's a really great question. What you have to do is be pragmatic and realize and make peace with yourself, saying, I really want to do this. I just don't have the time yet to do everything. Now, if I had the time, this is what I would do. And this is how I would get there. So when you do your gap analysis would be here, I get to that point in 6 months, 7 months. Now, the fact that you don't have the time, you have to extend that gap to maybe a year. And then you have to accept and recognize that. So then when you're looking through this imposter syndrome and saying, oh my gosh, why am I not getting there faster? What's wrong with me? There isn't. It's because you've chosen something really cool, which is, I want to do this thing. I'm really excited. I'm really inspired, but I don't have the time and I don't want to give up the opportunity. And because I don't have the time, the strategy I'm going to use is it's going to take me a little bit longer to build up that experience, to build up that skills, but you can still be smart about it. And how you be smart about it is you read really good books, you find great role models, and then you practice in your work. Because I had a really great boss, amazing guy, and get feedback. He used to give me feedback all of the time. And I was really poor at problem solving. He said, Midula, you're great at this. Your problem solving skills aren't so constructive. Focus on that. And he recommended me a brilliant book. I'll share it on the link. I'll share it with you afterwards. And then what I did is, rather than reading it, I applied it. So even though you may say, okay, this opportunity I want to take, it'll take me a long time to actually build the skills, there's certain things you can do to actually accelerate that.
So basically what you need to do, you need to accept that you do not have enough skills and to be ready for this, like imposter syndrome, and to be prepared for all other steps.
Yeah, okay. And be strategic about it. You don't have time, so be smart with your time. Identify what are the key things which will give you the biggest return. And by doing that, speak to the right people, the right role models, so then they can give you the shortcuts. Just don't speak to anyone and everyone. Find the right people.
We have also a lot of questions on the platform and on YouTube. As we have limited time and still I have one topic that I would like to discuss with you. Let us answer them later in offline mode, whatever you will decide, but definitely we will address all of them. So I would like to switch to the topic of your book. Yay! Basically to empower people to believe in themselves. So what are the main steps from your simple guide to build positive beliefs and raise self-esteem? Your recommendations for every day.
Right. Buy the book, firstly. I call it my SOS handbook to mindset and reprogramming yourself. So whether you have this belief that you're not good enough, and that's a negative self-perception you have, whether it's because you are suffering from imposter syndrome and you just need a reminder that you have the skills, it's a simple framework. It's a 5-step framework, which takes about 50 minutes a day. It's simple, it's repeatable, and it's based on 4 areas to work on. The first one is self-worth. Second is about appreciating and acknowledging your skills and qualities. So that then addresses your, am I good enough? Imposter syndrome. The third, which is really important, is around capturing your imagination and your dreams and creativity, because creativity is so important to really enable us to transform and work smarter as well. And the fourth aspect around this is managing worries, You could have the most important, amazing mindset. You could be, yeah, I feel great about myself, but life happens. So this is about how do you get unstuck on that. So it's a 5-step framework, and it's based on neurology, neuroscience, and it's about habit setting. Very simple. The book will also come with it in the next few weeks with video tutorials, as well as some resourcing videos to help you around communication and working smarter. Does
Sounds
that
really
answer your
great.
questions?
Yeah, for sure. I already bought my book, so I have
Yes.
it. Lucky me. Okay, very last question from my side, as unfortunately we need to finish already our conversation, and that will be very provocative question. Have you felt any doubts related to the conference, as it is another new activity you did?
So I'm going to ask you, do you think I did?
I won't answer this question. No, I'm asking you.
Oh my gosh, I've been I was feeling sick last night when I went to bed. I've never,
Seriously?
yeah, I was feeling really sick. I was really nervous. I've never done a conference before. This is the first time I've done something like this. So when Julia asked me originally, I said, yeah, of course I'll do it. And then afterwards I was, what the have I
You
done?
so easily agreed.
I
You have
was like,
such
yeah.
amazing book. Let's go to the conference. Yes.
And then we decided we'd make it really harder by doing an interview. And I was like, yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. But what really helped is, and this is why teamwork and brain power, collective brain power is really important. Yulia and Rena, they came up with, they asked me questions, said, hey, tell me some stories. But in terms of telling me your stories, they gave me the framework, which is, what was the situation? How did you feel? What do you do? And then what were the lessons learned? So by giving me that framework, it then enabled me to put my crazy ideas into some structure. And then I also looked back and I thought, how do I actually build this credibility about myself that I can do this? So I went back to previous experience I've had. So I used to run global calls with about 100 people on them, going through the financial forecasting. And I was like, okay, I've done that before. I've done pitching before. I've also done a couple of podcasts. So I know how to be interviewed. And then I did a lot of prep. So I sent Yulia, Darina, this deck, which is like 50, 60 pages long, to say,
That was a
hey,
huge
take a
one.
look at this. And I think you were pretty shocked when you saw that. But that was because I knew I didn't have the skills or the experience yet. So how do I actually get that for myself? So yes, I had amazingly high imposter syndrome during today.
And thank you. I believe that was amazing. I enjoyed really, and I hope our audience as well. So thank you for coming and agreeing for this interview.
Oh, thank you, Julia. I really enjoyed giving this interview, and I love what you're doing at the BA conference. I think it's really important to share with people real insights, practical takeaways. And what we'll do as well, I put together a handout, just a small handout around problem solving 101 with the things that we didn't cover today. So hopefully that will be useful as well.
I was trying basically to share that one during your were speaking, but not sure that people saw that one. So we'll share that as follow-up. Thank you very much. You also promised to address all the questions that we have on the platform and on YouTube channel, and I hope to see you more on our conferences.
I look forward to it. Take care and have a great rest of the day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.